What was that? Bathroom wall. Just archive this page. A show designed with jokes Canucks will get. Simpsons scribe Joel Cohen says launching an animated series in Canada with fellow expat Canucks has offered a welcome chance to pen jokes only hosers would get. The LA-based writer teams up with fellow Simpsons staffer Tim Long and How I Met Your Mother writer-producer Chuck Tatham for Teletoon's animated series Crash Canyon, debuting Sunday. Advocate staff September 15th, 2011, 6:53 p.m. Updated December 30th, 2016, 9:05 p.m. An image from the new Teletoon show Crash Canyon. Simpsons scribe Joel Cohen says launching an animated series in Canada with fellow expat Canucks has offered a welcome chance to pen jokes only hosers would get. Toronto. Simpsons scribe Joel Cohen says launching an animated series in Canada with fellow expat Canucks has offered a welcome chance to pen jokes only hosers would get. The LA-based writer teams up with fellow Simpsons staffer Tim Long and How I Met Your Mother writer-producer Chuck Tatham for Teletoon's animated series Crash Canyon, debuting Sunday. The half-hour comedy series centers on the plight of the Wendells, a Canadian family who accidentally drive off a cliff and into a canyon where they meet a range of oddball characters who have lived there for years. Cohen says he relished the chance to drum up inside jokes, such as the name of the canyon-bound clothing store, Canadian Attire. He says he's wanted to work north of the border for a while and recruited his TV colleagues Long and Tatham to each pen scripts. The Calgary-bred Cohen says it's been satisfying to write for an audience that will get Canuck references too obscure for a US crowd. Tim had a great time putting all sorts of Canadian jokes in, Cohen said in a recent telephone interview from Los Angeles. The draft I read, it was almost too many Canadian jokes, but we found that every episode has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 references that mostly only Canadians will get. And it was really fun because, yes, where else would I have the opportunity to do that? The Simpsons has leveled its fair share of Canadian barbs over the years, but Cohen notes they've mostly come from US writers. This was the most patriotic thing of all, that a Canadian could make fun of his own country himself, says Cohen, who developed Crash Canyon and wrote the pilot. The canyon in question is located somewhere in Alberta, adds co-producer and story editor Greg Lawrence, noting the Wendells were driving to Saskatchewan when their RV tumbled over the cliff. Misfits who populate Crash Canyon include a one-hit wonder punk rocker, a woman who adopts a bear as her slave, a guy in a perpetual coma, and a ventriloquist with an abusive dummy. Lawrence says, even though all the characters are essentially trapped, albeit in a relatively sprawling landscape that includes a river, lake, and waterfall, he and Cohen were careful to make sure that does not dictate the storyline. The fact that they can't escape is always present, but there was a conscious decision made in the writing process not to have every episode be about trying to get out of the canyon, because then it becomes too familiar each week, says Lawrence. It's not Gilligan's Island where every episode is, this week we're getting off the island, but we do keep the sentiment alive, so as you move through the series, there are attempts to get out and all fail. Lawrence says keeping them trapped together is where a lot of the comedy comes from. I quite like characters who don't necessarily like each other, being forced to get along. Cohen says his new show aims to offer something people could watch with their kids and only be slightly embarrassed. We push the envelope a little bit farther than, let's say, The Simpsons, but certainly nowhere near the American Dad Family Guy model, adds Lawrence. The Simpsons, meanwhile, is set to air its 500th episode in February 2012. With that many episodes in the can, it can be difficult to come up with fresh scenarios to explore in the world of Springfield, says Cohen. Branching out into a new series allowed him a broader range of creative options. You're breaking fresh ground with these Crash Canyon characters, and they have a different voice than Marge and Homer's. It's that opportunity to do something new and fresh without having to do it under the well-established Simpsons umbrella. Crash Canyon debuts Sunday on Teletoon. Yep, I should have checked the article to notice that the same text text would be repeated as I read it. Anyways, that article's nostalgic for me because since there was no Common Sense Media review of Crash Canyon, I used that quote about the content levels of the show and to decide that I could watch it under my mom's rules. And boy, was Grammy amazed to see a Calgary sign in a cartoon.